Good evening and welcome to the July 7th Historic Preservation Commission meeting. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. And Christy, could you do the roll, please?
Yes, Casey Sampson.
Present.
George Piper.
Here.
Scott Allen.
Present.
Nicole Wethington.
All right, so we have a quorum to conduct business. So we have, if everybody had a chance to look at the minutes, I didn't entertain any motion. Oh, wait a minute. We cannot approve the
No,
minutes
it's
tonight.
just the two of you. We'll have to do it
Yep.
next time.
So we'll have to table the minutes until next meeting. Seeing no other old business before the board, we'll move right to new business, which is a certificate of appropriateness for 107 East Main Street, the J. Tribbett Building.
Yep. Good evening. So as Casey mentioned, this is a COA for 107 East Main Street. This property has been before you in the past. In fact, it was just before you on January 6th of 22 for a facade restoration project. And if you've seen the building between January 6th and now, you can see the transformation that has happened at this property. I'm not going to go through necessarily the classification and all that stuff that I have in the past, since this is a recent application that was before you. But the request tonight is a certificate of appropriateness for painting the non-historic brick facade. So in a nutshell, basically what has happened here is the project has moved along quite nicely. The new components of the building have been installed. And you sit back and you take a look at this yellow brick that's on the front of it, and it's just yellow brick, you know. It's one of those things where it just doesn't fit in with doesn't match the improvements at this point. So the applicant is seeking the approval to paint that yellow brick, only the yellow brick on the north-facing wall. The brick was installed during a project that took place in the mid-1940s, is why you see that more modern brick. Mr. Tribbett is seeking approval to paint that brick, as I mentioned. The applicant has proposed a choice of two colors and is open to hearing preference of the HPC on those colors. The proposed colors are both from Sherwin-Williams. The colors are Black Swan or Wall Street. The color samples, were attached to the report that was sent to you prior to this meeting, and I will pull those up so that you can see those as we move forward here. I'm going to start with the Black Swan. You know, I'm not even going to. I'll show you the color swatch if we want to put that up on the screen. You know, it's subject to the resolution on whatever screen you're looking at, but Black Swan, and here are some examples of Black Swan on some brick buildings that appear to be in historic nature. You can see how it kind of blends in with the black storefront, which Mr. Tribbett has done, the black windows. There's another example of Black Swan with the black accents. Wall Street is the next color, more of a light gray. There is Wall Street example on a historic building. Looks to be historic brick on that one as well, and I'll get into that here in a second. And this is kind of a close-up of the Wall Street. Different lighting effect there, so you can see how it's a little bit lighter. Here are the existing elevations. So here we have the yellow brick with the newly installed black framed windows. We'll call it the eyebrow that was over the storefronts prior to the renovation here, if you remember, was an asphalt kind of awning. And they removed that, found missing brick behind that, had to replace the lintels above the storefronts. There was rotten steel back there. Put some new brick in, and that's the best match they could get with this brick. Sorry for the tree. the tree that will shortly be removed because it's creating a trip hazard in the sidewalk. But this is kind of the best view I could get of how the historic brick is now blending with the yellow brick in the front. Black transom windows on the side, you can see those framed out as well. Again, the only side the applicant is proposing to paint is this north side. The east-facing side, which paint was removed from, will remain the exposed brick. And there's a difference in that brick, and we've talked about it in several meetings. The historic brick is more porous and doesn't react well to paint. It needs to breathe. These buildings that were built 130, 40 years ago by accident, not necessarily on purpose, but the brick at the time was designed to let the water out. These buildings were not watertight at that time. And we've tried to make them watertight over the years, and it's actually had an adverse effect on the brick. So that's why you don't paint the historic brick. No matter how watertight you want to make these buildings, water is going to get into that historic brick, and it needs to be able to get out. So that's the reason we don't paint historic brick. Modern brick takes paint a little bit better. Modern brick is not as porous as historic brick. So painting modern brick is not going to trap moisture in the brick as it would if it was the porous historic brick. So with that, staff believes the yellow non-historic brick does not complement the improvements that the building has seen. Painting the brick will not have an adverse effect on the performance of the brick due to it being modern, as I mentioned. Staff believes the proposed changes will not have a negative impact on the structure or the district and recommends approval of the certificate of appropriateness in front of you tonight. Happy to answer any questions. The applicant is also here as well. And with the presentation, we can have some conversation on whichever color you prefer.
Okay. Questions for Derek immediately? Great. Doing some research into our historic preservation ordinance, we don't actually define what historic brick is, and I think that could be a useful update because doing some, just in Indiana, there's different definitions between DNR and Indiana landmarks. Both give different dates and times. So in regards to historic brick, I think that could be something that we look into, as I found. But
and Casey, I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but when I'm talking about historic brick, I'm talking not necessarily the age, I'm just talking about the composition of the brick.
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's even then. Some
Sure.
are saying 1940, and some are saying 1930 and 20. So
Sure.
I just think it's interesting for us to look into, and considering it's not just the age, like Derek was saying, it's the composition. So, but I think the improvements have shown that a color change in the brick is necessary to make that complement the structure. So, any discussion on the color choice type? That is the purview of this commission to discuss what would complement the area better. Thoughts?
I mean, my personal preference, I really like the look of the black, especially with the windows, being black. I just think it looks timeless, sharp. I think it will withstand the test of time more. I mean, gray is gray, and it's not, a loud color certainly, but I think the black is just more classy.
I think between the two, they're so close in that temperature, and they're both a colder, darker color. I think they're both complement the structure decently well, especially the green building to the side and the Heflin building off to the west, I guess that would be.
Did the applicant have a preference on color?
I would prefer the black.
The applicant prefers the black. Any other discussion on the topic?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of with you, Casey, there's not I think you kind of alluded to it, Sky, there's not really I think a difference. It's not like they're not totally contrasting each other, the black or the gray. So, I mean, I'm comfortable with going with what the applicant would prefer to put on, seeing as there's no, I think, nothing outstanding or nothing that's going to make one choice or the other stand out.
Are there any other secondary colors that will be placed on the facade? would you mind going to the, sorry.
At this point in time, on the front facade, there will be no secondary colors.
Okay.
The thought is, down the road, once we get through this project, is to maybe trim it in some sort of cedar wood or something of that nature. But at that point, we would come back and have that discussion. There is a second story on the back of the building that I haven't decided exactly what I want to do there. We've redone the whole backside of it. The windows are in, the cement board is up. But the thought would be to maybe have a secondary color there, but that's not a determining factor on the front of the building at this point. If we need to paint it all black, I'll do that as well.
And you're confident in the type of paint that you're using, that it's not going to, you know, deter or deteriorate the front brick or mortar in there in any way?
That's correct. I've talked with 2 different painters, and they are confident that everything will be just as it should be.
Okay.
And at this time, nothing will change with the east side? Will you guys be doing any kind of a pressure wash or anything to kind of clean it up, or?
The only thing that we would do is to do not even a pressure wash, or a very slight pressure wash, just to get it to a more of a standard of normalcy,
Yeah.
I guess. But nothing more done to that side. In talking with the brick masons, the only thing that they said might help would be to put a light sealer on it of some sort, but it's not going to change the color, the dynamic of that side.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant? Any questions for staff? That, entertain a motion on the COA?
A motion that we approve the COA as submitted with black as the color of choice.
Second?
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Excellent.
Building
Thank
is
you all.
looking phenomenal.
Thank you very much. We're excited.
Thank you. All right, last order of business here is other business, a staff-issued COA report, if any.
There are no staff-issued COAs between the, what, do we have a May meeting and this meeting? Or was it April? I can't remember. It's been a little while. I do have an application on my table right now for a sign for the new distillery that's moving into the previous, what was that?
The Talent Factory
Talent
building?
Factory
Yeah.
building, yep. And it looks like it's an appropriate sign. Hasn't been approved yet, so next time we talk, that will likely be one that has been approved.
Okay. Any other business to come before the board? That, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you very much. We'll see you next month.